Hey all, I'm back. On to the next part of operant conditioning. We're going to talk about schedules of reinforcement. There are 4 different schedules of reinforcement, and really what we're just talking about here is how often do you reinforce. So let's say I'm trying to teach my dog to sit. When you're first training a behavior or creating a behavior, you want to use continuous reinforcement, meaning you give your dog a treat every single time they sit. Otherwise, your dog's going to be really confused, okay? But let's say now your dog is really good at sitting on command. Are you going to give that dog a treat every time he sits for the rest of his life? No, he would be a really fat dog like Duncan is. Anyway, so we're going to switch to something called schedules of reinforcement, which means you don't reinforce them every single time. There are 4 different options here. You've got fixed ratio, variable ratio, fixed interval, and variable interval. So let me go through and define these words for you. If you see the word fixed, your brain should automatically say predictable. And variable, your brain should say unpredictable. Okay? Now that's the easy part. The hard part is the difference between ratio and interval. When you see the word ratio, they are talking about the number of times an organism has to perform a behavior in order to get reinforcement, okay? So a fixed ratio schedule means, let's say I've got my rat pressing the bar now that I talked about in the last video. So I use continuous reinforcement and shaping to create that behavior in my rat, and now I just want to reinforce once in a while. Fixed ratio would be something like every 5 times the rat presses the bar, they'll get a treat, okay? So it's based on the number of behaviors, and it's predictable for the rat, okay? Variable ratio, still based on the number of behaviors, but it's unpredictable for the rat, okay? So maybe the first time you reinforce after 5 bar presses. The next time you do it after 3. Maybe it's an average of 5, next time you do it 7. But the rat never knows how hard it's gonna have to work to get the reinforcement. And quite frankly, because it's unpredictable, the rat is really probably going to work harder just to make sure it gets its treat. The next one is fixed interval. Again, we're talking about predictable, but interval refers to the amount of time within which an organism needs to perform a behavior at least once in order to get reinforcement, okay? So let's go back to our rat, and now I have him on a fixed interval schedule, okay? So let's say my predictable interval is a minute, okay? If the rat presses the bar within that minute, at the end of that minute, they will get a treat. If they press the bar 52 times in that minute, at the end of the interval, they're still only going to get 1 treat. So doing more doesn't get the rat more, but it at least has to respond at least once to get the treat at the end of the interval. So if it never presses the bar, it gets nothing at the end of the interval. But the interval is the determining factor in terms of how often it gets reinforced. Variable interval, again, the rat's not going to know what's going on. So your interval might be 30 seconds this time. It might be a minute and a half next time. The rat never knows what the interval is, and so it's going to press that bar like crazy because it wants to make sure not to miss the interval, okay? So it's going to keep going. So let me give you some human examples of all those. Fixed ratio. You go to Starbucks, you're on their rewards program. For every $10 you spend, you get 25 points, and then you can accumulate those to add up to gifts. But it's based on your behavior, how much are you spending, and you know ahead of time what you have to do to get what you're trying to get, okay? Variable ratio, all gambling, okay? So, slot machines, okay? Just like the rat, you're pulling the lever. You don't know how many times you have to pull the lever before you're going to get reinforcement. So it's based on your behavior of pulling the lever, but it is completely unpredictable. Now, with variable ratio and with fixed ratio, the more you do the behavior, in the end, the more you're going to get a reinforcement. So you have a little control of your outcomes in ratio that you don't particularly have in interval. So again, another example, let's say we're talking about lottery tickets, okay? If you have one person that bought one ticket, so they've only engaged in one behavior, and then somebody else that bought 1,000 tickets, okay, then the odds of winning for that person that did the behavior more are higher, okay? So it's still unpredictable. We don't know if they're going to win, but their odds are higher because they did more of the behavior. Or think about old folks playing bingo, okay? The people that got 10 bingo cards in front of them are going to, on average, win more often, even though it's unpredictable, than somebody that only has one bingo card in front of them, okay? So still based on behavior, but unpredictable. Fixed interval, okay, you have to, well, let's take paychecks, right? Paychecks. I get paid every 2 weeks, okay? I can kill myself 1 2 week period, much like I'm doing now, and I'm not going to get any more money, okay, because it's based on time. I still have to do my job. I have to show up my job. I kind of have to metaphorically respond at least once, okay, but doing more doesn't accomplish anything for me, okay? So frankly, this is the lowest level of response you're going to get. So let's go back to our rat in the cage, okay? I've got my rat on that 1 minute schedule. Eventually, the rat's going to figure out it's just going to hit the bar and then it's going to chill out for a minute, okay? And then it's going to roll back around and hit the bar again. So fixed interval gets you the least response of anything because it is predictable and doing more doesn't get you more. Variable interval, on the other hand, gets you a lot, okay? So let's say a friend said, you are getting a package in the mail for your birthday. Suddenly, you are checking the mail all the time, way more than you used to, right? I've increased my behavior, but I still don't know when it's going to pay off. Now, if I never checked the mail, I wouldn't get my package, okay? But because it's unpredictable, because I know it's coming, I'm going to check it a lot. Or imagine, you know, a tax return is going to end up in your bank deposit by automatic deposit, whatever. You're going to check your balance way more often. It doesn't accomplish anything, okay, because it's going to happen when it happens, but it's an unpredictable amount of time. All right, so what I'm going to pull up next, if I can get this to work. Nope, we're not going there yet. Okay, is an example sheet for us to work on. I gave you in that little packet the last day of several worksheets that we're going to be referring to. So you're going to want to find those and work off those. But this is not the one I gave you because I didn't bring that home. If somebody would send me a screenshot of the schedule and reinforcement exercise I sent you, then I'll go over that in a video too. But what I want you to do right now is pause. Okay, pause the video and go try these. Okay, so pause. No, really pause. I know which of you are currently pausing right now and which of you are just keeping watching this because you know I'm going to say the answers. Let me just tell you, the ones that are pausing and trying it on their own are going to get better grades, but you know, up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and go through these. You get paid once every 2 weeks. Okay. So first of all, is that a predictable situation or an unpredictable situation? Well, I know it's every 2 weeks. So that's predictable, so I can put an F down. So fixed means predictable. The next question, is it time or is it behavior that we're looking at? They're not talking about what I have to do in that sense at all, but they are giving me a time every 2 weeks. Okay, so that is fixed interval. Second one, slot machines at casinos pay off after a certain number of plays. Well, we just did that. Okay, it's unpredictable, obviously, and it's based on how many times you pull that lever. So it's variable ratio. Students are released from class when the end of the period bell rings. Okay, so same time of day every day. So that's very predictable. The student's behavior doesn't have an impact on that. So that's fixed interval. You get a nickel for every pop can that you return. They're probably saying you should put fixed ratio there, meaning every time, predictable amount of times. But honestly, I would call that continuous reinforcement. So I think CR is a better example, but they're probably going for FR. Okay, next one. Sometimes the mail is delivered at 1, sometimes at 3. Again, they're not talking about a behavior. They're talking about time. They're talking about unpredictable amount of time. So that is VI, variable interval, unpredictable time. 6, a car salesman who gets commission on each sale. Okay, I bet you got this one wrong. So it's definitely ratio because it's based on the car salesman's behavior, right? Okay, he has to sell the car. We know he has to sell the car, so it's ratio. Okay, but you might have put variable because he doesn't know if he's going to sell the car or not. But the answer is really fixed because it's does the salesman know what he's going to get if he does the behavior. Okay, so commissions are usually like 10%. Okay, so I know if I sell this $20,000 car, I am going to get $2,000. So it's not based on whether they did behavior, it's based on if they did the behavior. So that is fixed ratio. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Getting a small increase in your hourly wage every 6 months. Again, it's talking about time. It's talking about a predictable amount of time. So we're talking about fixed interval. I'm going to talk quick because I'm running out of time. Mrs. Blass is tired of her students not being prepared for class each day. She knows that they are hardworking seniors who value getting an A in their class, and she wants to set up a schedule of work so they study hard and consistently. She schedules pop quizzes. Okay? Only she knows when the quizzes will be given. Assuming the students find the grade of A or B to be reinforcing, what scheduled reinforcement is at work here? Okay, obviously it's unpredictable, so it's a V. Okay? And the students don't know when it's going to happen. Okay, so that's an interval one. Okay, it's based on time. Yes, they need to keep studying, but she is trying to get that rat to work non-stop with that predictable amount of time, okay, and get that high level of response. Okay, 9, Sally's trying to break up with her boyfriend. She refuses to text him back 90% of the time when he texts her. Sometimes, you can read this. I'm going to answer it because I'm running out of time on this video. So that is unpredictable, right? She's not being consistent in the number of times she reinforces him. Completely unpredictable. And it's based on behavior, the number of texts he sends out. So you should have down variable ratio for that one. Again, if my answers aren't making sense, send me an email, or better yet, hit me during the office hours and I'll try to explain them. 10, Manuel is thinking about opening a new coffee shop. He wants to compete. He's not sure how to draw in crowds, so every time they spend $5, once they get a star. Once they spend $50, they receive a free medium drip. Okay, we already talked about this one. It's fixed ratio. The customers know what they have to do. They know how much they're going to get when they do it. Okay, so it's fixed ratio. Honor roll is announced every 9 weeks and prizes are given out. Okay, so again, it's giving you a time slot. It's a predictable time slot, so it's fixed interval. Whew, I talked fast on that. I hope it made sense, but hey, you can replay it 5 times if you need to. And again, catch me during virtual office hours if you want me to go through it with you one-on-one. All right, I'll see you in a minute.